So there's, in all the talk about the economic fiscal update and all the points in this that some people, and we talked to a couple of them yesterday, were not happy with. There is one group, I think, in this country, and it's not even a guess. This is a very clear, they are thrilled. That's Canada's amateur athletes, not just the ones now, but the ones who will choose to be athletes representing this country down the road. Want to find out about this because the news, as I said, is really good. Laurent Dubreuil is an Olympic speed skater, bronze medalist, of course, at the Milano Cortina Games. And we spoke earlier in this year as well after, let's be honest, a rather disappointing Olympics for Canada in Italy. Laurent, at that time, I believe we talked about, the fact that we need more money. We talked about coaches leaving the country, losing some great talent, and all of a sudden comes this announcement. So first of all, if I have my numbers right, we're talking about over $700 million over the next 5 years. That's very, very significant.
Yeah, it's a significant investment in sport, investment in the future of our country because, as you said, $755 million over 5 years, but most of that is going to youth sports and building infrastructure to get sports more accessible to kids. And then a part of it, smaller part, I think it's 45 million total, is going to the high level athletes. So a little bit for us and a lot more for all the families who decide to sign up their kids in sport, which is, I think, what the country needs right now.
When I read in this release, the majority of the money, $660 million, allocated to sports federations. What does that mean?
So let's take us, for instance, Speed Skating Canada is the body that regulates and organizes speed skating throughout the country. But this is money that the Federation, Speed Skating Canada, and I think there's over 100 different sports federations throughout Canada for every sport, tennis, soccer, hockey, every sport has its federation. And the federations will have to use that money to fund youth sports, from what I've heard. So it's not going to go towards sending me to the World Championship or the Olympics. It's going to go towards, I don't know, building an arena, making sport cheaper for families, coaches for youth sports, that sort of thing.
Well, okay, but there is part of this set aside directly for that, right? Going to athletes like you for training, competition. How much of that in here for you?
This is, so it's 45 million over 5 years. So 9 million per year going to the high level athletes.
Is that good?
I think it's good. It's 9 million more than we had before.
Fair enough.
We've been, getting by what we have for the last decade or so in high-level sports. So federations have become, I think, quite good at getting by with minimal resources. So I think that 9 million, which is going to be spread out over the 30 or so sports on the Olympic program, it's still going to be, it's going to make a difference in us getting results for sure.
It's interesting. As I said, we spoke after the Italy games, right? Because, I think the reference then was look at a country like Norway, right? So small. It's basically the size of Quebec, yet they won more medals than anyone else. How can they do that in Canada? Again, did not perform as well as we'd expected. Do you think you speaking up about this and other athletes speaking up about this might have sort of pushed, the government to say, you know what, he's right? Because I read today in this story, this is the biggest injection of money into amateur sport in this country in 20 years.
Yeah, it might have made a difference. That's part of why I did it. I was hoping it would make a difference, help sport athletes, young and high-level athletes, be able to practice their sport for longer and have the access to it. And then after, in the end, it doesn't really matter to me if I made a difference or not. Just I was hoping it would. Maybe it would have happened without me speaking out about it, but I think it needed to be said, and I'm happy the government clearly agree and put sport higher in their priorities than it used to be.
To be fair, you're not the only one who spoke out. I mean, you have a voice because you're an Olympian. We were hearing from a few people suggesting the same thing. I remember we did a story on related to this about coaches here, really good coaches in our system who basically were, picked by other countries and, taken away from us. And the kind of thing is that we've been able to pay them the right amount of money. They would have stayed here, which would have resulted in better outcomes for us as well. So I wonder too, Adam Van Coverden, who's another Olympian, ex-Olympian, is the Minister of Sport. Did he reach out to you, or how did that work? How did you get a meeting with him?
Yeah, so after I spoke out and we talked in February, right after the Olympics, he wrote to me and he said, hey, just to let you know, thank you for speaking out, and we can get in touch if you want, so I can set up a meeting and so what we're trying to achieve. And I said, yeah, but just let me finish my season first. I was in Europe then for the World Championship, and then I had a meeting, and he said, yeah, I think good news are going to be coming pretty soon. So it's nice speaking to him before seeing this drop. I had a feeling, as you said, he's not just an Olympian, he's a 4-time Olympic medalist. He knows what we have to go through to succeed. He knows the challenges that high-level sport bring. And he knew that we were struggling for financial resources. So I think he's on our side, and he can be proud with what they've been able to put forward for us.
I should mention, by the way, to be fair, yes, it's a significant amount of money. It doesn't mean that, come the next Olympic Games, even the Summer Games, it's all of a sudden going to be a flurry of medals for Canada. It doesn't work that way. This will take a while to filter through the system.
Yeah, and I think to get the results, you have to plan 10, 15 years in advance. Like the reason we've been good the last decade, 15 years is because we invested massively before the Vancouver Olympics, which it's already 16 years ago, but I grew up with the system that was put in place for the Vancouver Olympics. So the reason we've been winning medals the last decade is we had resources, but they've been drying up over 15 years. And I expect it's going to take a few years to reverse what's been happening, to get back at improving again. But this is the step in the right direction, and I think we might be able to win a lot of medals in 15 years and say, well, this is because of what happened this week.
Yeah, that'd be something. I will ask you, just for people who don't know, again, I remember after the games in Italy, I know it was one of the skiers on our Canadian team who basically, almost had to pay her own way to get to the World Championships because there was no money to send her. That's still the kind of thing that happens now?
Yes. I had to just take myself, for instance, after the Olympics, I had to stay. I wanted to skate the World Championships. Obviously, you don't have to, but it's part of what I do, right? And I want to compete against the best and represent Canada, but I had to pay from my own pocket everything. So I stayed in Europe to save up on flights. I stayed with friends in the Netherlands for 2 weeks instead of going to a hotel. But the skaters from other countries, they didn't have to do that. I was the only one not at the hotel, right? Because the other countries fund their athletes. So it was a bit of a struggle in that regard, but hopefully this is behind us now. We'll see where the money goes in the next couple of years, but it's good news.
Gotta hope that something like that, as embarrassing it is, you hate to see someone be embarrassed into something and making it, but I'm sure, that kind of story, and yours is probably not the only case, where Canadian Olympians are kind of left on their own. So maybe that's one of the reasons the government decided to come through, and who cares? They're coming through. That's all that counts. Laurent, I wish you good luck. I wish you all the best, and you're going to obviously stay involved in speed skating for a while?
Yeah, I'm hoping to go for more years and skate in 2030, but I'll be quite old then, so it's a big task, but I'm training hard.
Wish you all the best. Congratulations. I know you're a big part of this. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Laurent Dubreuil, former Canadian Olympian who hopefully will be competing again. And that's good news, as I said. The thing he said right at the beginning is really important. We talk about money for amateur athletes. The bulk of this $755 million being set aside is to get more people involved, get kids involved, have more facilities, right? And that's a huge, huge step. So I hats off to the government for coming through with that money.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.